So what I've got here is I've got the demolitionist ability. I've maxed out all of my specialization weapons, so I get the benefits, the added benefits of SMG and LMG damage. So it makes sense for me to tap into that benefit and use an SMG and an LMG. If I was using an assault rifle and a sniper rifle, I would be ignoring that benefit. So optimizing your loadout is all about making sure that you're taking advantage of all of these little benefits that you get. So let's talk firstly about the SMG that I'm using. I've gone for one that's very high damage. It's almost 23,000 damage. I put on an attachment that gives me a 52 mag. It gives me more rounds than it has by standard. I've gone for like 20 plus rounds at a detriment of 10% reload speed. So I've got more clips and more rounds in the clip. I've gone for critical hit range and critical hit chance. So being an SMG with already the standard 14.5% critical hit chance, this kind of just stacks to it as well to make it even more dangerous, and just a minor 10% stability, but really you can go for whatever you prefer for accuracy or stability. I personally prefer stability. On top of this, with the police T821, I've got a talent which plays into my skill-based loadout, which is recharged while equipped, skills deployed at full armor, have a 25% duration, charges and ammo. So this is massive. You know, if you are a skill-based loadout, sometimes it can be good for you to hang back a little bit, and if you do hang back, you'll have full armor, and if you just deploy the skills, then you can go on the front line and you can lose your armor and it's fine. But as long as you launch it while you have full armor, this is brilliant. To have 25% more efficiency with your skills, that really does play into my loadout. So make sure that you're looking for weapons with talents that suit the loadout and your playstyle. Moving on to the LMG, this isn't my favorite LMG. So this is the MG5. It's not a bad LMG, but I'm choosing it because I've got this in rhythm. While equipped, enemy kills have a 5% chance to refresh. Active skill cooldowns can occur once every minute. So once a minute, if I kill someone, I get a 5% chance of having instant skills available. So I've chosen it for that benefit. If I had my way, I'd probably choose this, the MK46. It does vastly more damage. I've got a much bigger clip in the magazine there. The accuracy is better, the stability is better. I just prefer this weapon, but I've not chosen it for this loadout, and the reason why is because I've got a talent blocked out. I don't qualify to earn this talent, and I can't change it. You can see underneath with the extra 20% magazine capacity, it's already been modified, so I can't modify Optimist. So choosing this LMG, even though it's maybe better in terms of damage and magazine and accuracy and stability, it's not better for the loadout that I'm creating. So that's why I've gone for the MG5. It's still not a bad weapon. It's still going to take advantage of that perk that I've got there, breadbasket, which means, you know, I'm going to be stacking a lot of damage onto the enemies, but I get this in rhythm, which every now and then it'll be a nice surprise just to have an instant skill cooldown available. And remember, I'm not optimizing this loadout for my weapons, I'm optimizing this loadout for the skill. It's for the skill power and the skill damage and the skill cooldowns and everything to do with the skill. So consider that. Think about what is the objective of your loadout and then choose your weapons accordingly to that. I'm going to move on to the main gear in a second, but I'm going to talk about skills. So in this build with a skill power of 2163, that's quite a big skill power. I could have it even higher. I could go up to 3000 or 3500, but it's not necessary. And the reason why I say it's not necessary is with these skills, once you've modded them and you've applied the mods that you can see on the bottom right, it's kind of not really important. As long as you qualify to make all of these mods active, it's not really too critical to have more skill power. You can put all of the remaining kind of mods and stuff like that into your armor to make it so that you're less likely to get injured during a fight. What we could do though, for example, is probably change this for a turret, and I'll explain why in a second, but we'll go for that. And we'll just save that loadout quickly here. So to go back into it, so the two abilities I've got here is the turret. The reason why I've gone for this is it's the artillery turret. It takes advantage of the demolitionist special ability, which is like an artillery turret that launches like ordnance, basically massive artillery shells at the enemy. Because I've got a high skill power, this does massive amounts of damage to the enemy. It does 145,000 damage to the enemy. It's got an ammo of 7 because I've got 3 extra mortar ammo. It does more damage. It has a cooldown reduction mod. I qualify for all of these mods, so that's definitely a good skill to use. And I've also gone for the drone. I'll go into this a little bit later as to why I've chosen the drone, but I've got extra cooldown reduction, I've got extra armor, so you know, that's incredibly useful also. So moving on to the gear. The gear is basically chosen for three main reasons. It's either chosen for SMG power, it's chosen for skill power, or it's chosen for armor. So as you scroll down here, you can see that we've got extra critical hit damage here. We've got skill power and cooldown reduction. We've got 20% armor reduction, regeneration. So that's extra armor, extra skill power. In this build, we've got rifle damage, which is a bit of a waste. I do want to change this piece out when I can find a high armor piece that has good abilities, but I've got rifle damage here, so I'm looking to change that. But as we scroll down, we can see like headshot damage, bonus armor, skill power, and then 10% armor, all great things that contribute to my build. Moving on, we've got also more critical hit damage. We've got a massive amount of skill power there, 725. That's a lot to get for just one piece. And I've got 5% weapon damage regardless of what weapon I'm using, so that's pretty massive too. This is where it starts to get interesting with the skill power. So we've got the bag here. We've got critical hit damage and drone skill power. So my drone does 15% more power. So that's why it's useful to use the drone instead of something else. And as we scroll down further, we've got critical hit chance, critical hit damage. That's great for the SMGs that already have a high value of both. We've got decent amount of skill power, and we've got this ability which I love. We've got a hardened 10% armor, which is nice, but we've got on the ropes, and this is your weapon damage is increased by 25%. That's massive, while your skills are on cooldown. So if you think about that talent I've got earlier, where if you launch your skills whilst you are full armor, they have 25% more duration, ammo, and and what have you. It's useful to launch my abilities while I've got full armor. Then when my abilities are out, I can go forward and start killing loads of people because I'll be doing 25% more damage, weapon damage, when my skills have finished. So let my skills go out there, do all the work, and then my skills will, my power will do a lot more damage when those skills have destroyed and finished. So I'm dangerous with my skills out, and I'm also dangerous when my skills are on cooldown. So I like that style. I'm dangerous all the time. If I look at the gloves here, we've got 10% cooldown reduction, which is a nice feature. We've got 7% more SMG damage, and we've got 20% skill duration. Skill duration probably isn't so important. I'd probably change it if I could for skill power, because as I mentioned a second ago, I'm equally as powerful when my skills are away than when my skills are in place. So I could probably change the duration to just have more power. And moving on, lastly, we've got the knee pads, which is critical hit damage, drone skill power, so that's another 15% drone skill power. So the drone's really adding up some damage now. We've got extra skill power there, 387, that adds to the loadout, which is massive. But I particularly like this talent. It's kills from cover, reduce skill cooldowns by 20%. So if I can play a little bit more passively and get kills from cover instead of being out in the open and killing enemies, then this talent is fantastic for really burning down the clock and getting my skills out sooner. So now you can start to see that all of my talents and all of the abilities that I'm choosing really do contribute to the overall power of my loadout. So lastly, this is the pistol here, which I'm not too fussed about pistols, but sometimes you can find on pistols that they have a talent that says while holstered. So you see greased here, it says while holstered, weapon swap speed is increased by 10%. That means I don't need to be using the pistol to get advantage of that. So I can swap weapons 10% faster than normal just because I've got this pistol holstered. I don't need to be using it, so it's a really nice talent to have. So do keep an eye out when it comes to the sidearms of while holstered, because you can add some nice benefits to your main weapons. So this is basically my gear page. That is basically how I've optimized my loadout to make sure that I'm high armor and high skill power. But I want to let you into another tip, which is absolutely essential if you're optimizing your loadout, and that is in the menu option to press R1 twice to go to the stats area. Now stats area is really important. This is basically a summary of your loadout. This is the stuff that's gold. I wish I could inspect other players and see their stats page, because this really tells me whether someone's got an optimized loadout. It's nothing to do with their gear score. It's more about what is on this page. So this page is basically a summary of your character. It's what skills they have, what damage they do, what defense they have, also what dark zone perks they have if you're beating them in the dark zone and stuff like that. But this is where all the gold is. So at the very top here, we've got a very useful summary of what's going on in terms of the skill. So if I scroll right to the top, we've got on the ropes, weapon damage is increased by 25% when all skills are on cooldown. That's a massive amount of damage. And towards the bottom right, we've got calculated. Kills from cover reduce skill cooldowns by 20%. So as you can see, I'm dangerous at both times, when my skills are out and when they're not. I've got a 20% skill duration on the left. I could change that later on for more power, but it's still very useful to have in terms of doing more skill damage for longer. And then the other three are hardened, and 20% armor regeneration. So plenty of armor to be going into the battle and not worrying about getting instantly knocked down. Underneath that, we've got 5% weapon damage, regardless of whatever weapon I'm using. So let me just give you a quick scenario. Top left ability on the ropes, and down here devastating 5% weapon damage. These two together, weapon damage is increased by 25% when skills on cooldown, and I get 5% weapon damage. So I'm already getting 30% weapon damage when my skills are on cooldown here. So it's a massive amount of extra damage that I probably wouldn't have had if my loadout was different. Now, if I scroll down, you get other weapon talents such as this. I've got in rhythm there, which is nice towards the bottom right. While equipped, enemy kills have 5% chance to refresh active skill cooldowns. I mentioned that earlier on. And just up and left recharged. While equipped, skills deployed at full armor have 25% extra. So these two complement my loadout nicely to give me even more raw skill power and to make myself even more of a threat. As I scroll down even further, this starts to basically reveal like how dangerous I am in terms of other things. So at the moment I've got the SMG equipped. You can see that from looking at the character on the left. I've got the SMG out. The critical hit chance and the critical hit damage are 28.5 and 49%. That's pretty respectable. That's a lot of damage, and I get an increased damage because I'm using an SMG. So my critical hit is very good. I've got 59% headshot damage. On my other weapon, that goes up to a whopping 94%. So if I use the LMG, 94% headshot damage. So that is just raining bombs on enemies. That's just unfair. But for my SMG, I've got some good crit hit damage and chance, and as I scroll down I can see that I do 22% SMG damage and 15% LMG damage. So these two are, it makes sense for me to use an SMG and an LMG for that reason. But this page is absolutely fantastic because it's this page that tells you basically how strong your character is overall. And in the skill section you can see my skill power is good, but if you look at my drone skill power, it's 2487. It makes sense for me to be using drone skill. I could also use the Seeker Mines because they're 2318. They're very powerful indeed, but seeing as I'm the Demolitionist ability, I'm very tempted to use the artillery turret. So that's what I'm doing there. So that is my loadout. Hopefully you can see that when you start ignoring the gear score and you look more for the talents and the gear that you're looking at and the mods that you're using, it's just far much more important. Also, I think if I just quickly find, in this bag, there's a mod that I've got that gives me 3% more total armor. That's massive, just for the sake of one mod. It gives me 3% more total armor. So you can just imagine how much different these mods and gears and the mods for the gears and the talents make in towards contributing for the total loadout. But this is a massive build for me. I've got loads of armor. I can go and cause loads of damage. But I hope this has given you a good example of how to optimize your loadout. And also I hope it's given you a good idea of how to build like a decent tank skill-based loadout. So I do plenty of damage, I've got loads of armor, I'm a force to be reckoned with. And if these don't suit you, if you don't want to be kind of an attacking skill-based player, I could be a healing skill-based player. I could basically go to something like the Reviver drone, the Fixer drone. It fixes teammates' armor, and I also could go here to the Restorer Hive and restore their armor while I'm on the move. I did used to use the Chem Launcher, but I think these are better because once you bring them out, you don't need to worry about them again and you can start attacking the enemy. Whereas with the Chem Launcher, you do need to keep firing that onto your teammates and it takes you out of the fight. So depending on kind of what your playstyle is, you can change the skills that you're using just to kind of be a healer or, you know, be on the front line and do massive amounts of damage. It kind of depends on what you want to do. But give me a comment if you've got any questions. Give me a like if you found this useful. But thank you very much for watching this video.